Danny O'Neill, Warfighter Overwatch. Thank you for being here. You are our bet on a vet for this month.
Thank you guys very much for having me. I'm truly humbled.
No, we're honored. We met you, I don't know. Was it 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that?
It was right after the bombing in Kabul. So that happened August 26, 2021. And then you guys helped us raise a bunch of money for Tyler Vargas Andrews, a local Marine who was catastrophically injured.
But it seems like we've known you forever. Maybe that's why. Danny, why don't you give us a little background about your military service? Now, you signed up right at 9/11, right after that?
I did. That day I was living in Manteca. I worked for a highway construction company in Livermore. I used to drive the Altamont Pass every day. And after I got into the Army, I joked that I'd rather go to war than sit in that traffic one more day. But it changed the direction of my life, and somebody in my family has fought in every war since the Revolutionary War. My dad was in Vietnam, my grandfather in World War II, my great-grandfather in World War I. This is something, and it wasn't that I was pressured to do it. My dad was actually angry. He said I was a fool for signing up, but it was my choice, and I'm grateful that I got the opportunity to serve my country.
Well, I got to believe that every generation that's been through a war, that's served in the military through a war, does not want that for their children, right? I would imagine that that you might have that point of view at the moment.
Absolutely. So I have 4 kids that I get to help raise every single day, and I'm terrified if something were to happen that would require them to go to war, because it's not a very healthy environment. You see the devastation and chaos, and I'm grateful that we're the away team, so my family doesn't have to live in an environment like that. But at the same time, my family's been passing this trauma from war from generation to generation, which is one of the reasons we started Warfighter Overwatch, to help fix mental health problems.
One thing I want to point out is you saw chaos and devastation in your time in Iraq.
I did. So on my second trip, I lost 9 guys from my unit. We were called the Hounds of Hell. I wear dog tags every day of my life with their names. They get me out of bed. They motivate me to make sure that I'm not wasting what they gave me, which was an opportunity, right? And I know that they sacrifice all of their tomorrows for my today. I'm not going to waste it. I was for a while. I was drinking myself to death and wallowing in self-pity, and that was not very conducive of a warfighter's mentality. And despite the fact that we lost 2 guys the day I left Iraq, which was November 26, 2006, and that was everything. That all the morale that we had left was gone, evaporated in one instant. And instead of their family getting home their hero after a year in hell, they got a knock at the door from some stranger saying, "I'm sorry for your loss." And that is something that is never forgotten by me or the people that I served with. And that means that I owe them to live a life worthy of their sacrifice.
Right. You went to squadron leader pretty quickly.
I did. So I made squad leader in a little over 18 months. And it was, you get thrust into a leadership position. It forces you to grow up. It forces you to be mature and to make decisions that could potentially affect someone else's life very quickly. And so you take that role on, and I think you understand when you become a non-commissioned officer in the military that people are counting on you, more so than you do. Like, they're counting on you when you're a private, because you're the ones who really help the Army move along. But it's those squad leaders who drive them. They motivate you to keep pushing and force you to get uncomfortable and to still be efficient at your job. And I'm grateful. It was the greatest honor of my life, I think, besides being a dad.
And I would imagine the skills that you learned doing that have helped you immensely in starting Warfighter Overwatch. Talk a little bit about why you started this and what you do and who you help.
So after I got home from war, I struggled. My fellow brothers that I served with struggled. We lost 9 that year. We've had 15 suicides. I was almost one of them. When I was a freshman, I walked in on my dad getting ready to commit suicide. My grandfather's a World War II veteran. He's buried in the Golden Gate National Cemetery. He committed suicide when my dad got sent to Vietnam. This is something that I have to stop, not just for my family, but for others, because I know what that pain is like. The pain that you feel doesn't go away when you commit suicide. It goes to the people who love you. And so this was my way of, one, curbing the suicide, and two, breathing some life into these warfighters and help bridging the gap between them and the civilians of our community. And not just for veterans, but for our first responders, firefighters, police officers. I send them to therapy. We have several programs. We have a therapy dog that program, Atlas Project, which puts the dogs with handlers who are in the fire station, who are at the police station, who can bring them to critical incidents. We send them on trips, fishing trips, hiking trips. I sent the Sacramento SWAT team. I had to ask the chief for permission. Hopefully nothing bad happens that day. But they went out on a chartered fishing trip. And for me, this is, number one, my way of making sure that they have camaraderie amongst each other. They remember why they do this. And number two, that people are grateful for what they sacrifice. It's not lost on them. And I want to make sure they understand that they're not alone, and that there are people who have been through similar experiences. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a way to find happiness and joy at the end of trauma.
There's a scene in the movie Private Ryan right before Captain Miller, Tom Hanks, passes away, where he tells Matt Damon, "Earn it." Is that kind of what gets you going every day? Same thing?
Yeah. So my first squad leader, I think we've talked about this before. His name is Jared Monty. Jared got the Medal of Honor. Well, his parents did. He got killed saving everyone's life in Afghanistan. And there's a song called "I Drive Your Truck" by Lee Brice. And that song was written based on an interview that Jared's dad, Paul, did on NPR. And wow. This woman in Nashville heard it. She was in traffic. Nashville's traffic is awesome. And she started writing down some of the responses that he gave to the questions from the interviewer. And it turned into, Song of the Year. And I rode in that truck. I went back there and buried another brother in Massachusetts. And I rode in that truck with Paul. And he said, "Tell me stories about my son that I don't know." And I'll tell you that I'm grateful I got to serve with Jared. He was a mountain of a man, which is ironic because Monty, his last name, means mountain in Italian, and he died on a mountain in Afghanistan. And he was not big in stature, but he was huge in character. And I try to embody what he did every single day, right? Heroism isn't one single act of selflessness, but really a culmination of these character traits that he embodied every single day and exhibited every day. And so for me, it's knowing that, there are big boots to fill. I owe these guys my life. I'm alive because of what they taught me. I got hurt in Iraq as well. I have shrapnel on my back. I have traumatic brain injury. I have things that cause me, chronic pain, but that pain reminds me that I'm alive and I have something to give to my community. And there was a time, I alluded to the fact that I tried to take my own life, and I did. And that was because I thought the only thing I brought to this world was death and destruction. And the truth is that I have much more to give, but I had to dig deep and really get through some of the hard stuff to get past it. And that's the same thing that those guys taught me, right? Was adapt and overcome. We adapt to the situation we find ourselves in. We overcome the adversity that we face. And I'm going to teach these guys to do the same thing, or remind them that they're capable of doing it.
So at Warfighter Overwatch, you do so many amazing things. And I want to get to real quickly the programs that are in place right now. Like I know you have a Christmas drive going on and a couple of other things. But first question for anybody who's watching this, who's married, how is it working with your wife every day?
It's amazing. It's number one, it's helped us grow closer together. We get to provide I think something for my kids to see that not everybody has the opportunity to do. And I think for that, I'm the most grateful, right? My kids get to see me be selfless every day. They get to see me help someone who's in crisis, who may be suicidal, or their family member is struggling with PTSD, or they're struggling with, the traumas of the job, and they really don't have anyone that they can trust or talk to. So getting to work with my wife and seeing she's the only person that I know that has, I think, a heart bigger than mine and is more selfless. She really drives this ship and make sure that the programs we have are based on a need that we've seen. And so for me, like, not only getting to see her intelligence, but her compassion for this work it inspires me to keep doing it.
And this is going to be our December bet on a vet. What do you need help with right now? How can people get involved?
Yeah, so Pat mentioned it. We have this Christmas drive. So essentially, if you're a veteran, first responder, you have kids, maybe things are tough right now, right? The economy's not doing so great. Things are very expensive. Let us help you, right? This isn't about pride. This is about making sure our kids know that there's good in the world. And even for us adults, sometimes we forget that. So go on to our website, warfighter.overwatch.org or .com, because I don't want you to get lost. I want to make sure we get everybody. And sign up. It's super easy. Someone from our team will reach out to you, find out the needs for your family, and we'll make sure that those needs are met. The community's done a great job in responding with the resources we need to help. And this is all doing things like this that help us get the word out. So again, thank you guys, because we're going to be able to, I think right now we have somewhere around 20 families and 48 kids signed up. And that's phenomenal. We are so excited. We're going to have a Santa. Everything's going to be done right here in the office. It's going to be a great time.
One other thing is, how many veterans and first responders would you say you've helped since starting Warfighter Overwatch? And second part of that is, just talk briefly about the programs that you have, because a lot of your outreach is actually literally outdoors. You do a lot of stuff outdoors. Why is that?
Well, for a number of reasons. One, if I get you breathing a little hard by hiking a mountain in the Sierras, which we're grateful to have right here, it's easier to get you to be vulnerable. And that vulnerability is going to allow you to connect with others and allow some feedback. So your guard is not as high if you are physically exerting yourself. That's one of the things we've learned. And even more importantly, when you go through that mutual suffering with someone, it doesn't have to be in a gunfight in Iraq or Afghanistan, but pushing yourself up this mountain, especially if you have, arthritis, back pain, shrapnel, who knows, just life is beating us up, right? It feels good to push yourself physically, and that allows us to connect. So we use that as a way to get folks to open up about the things that they have pushed deep down inside. And that connection to others allows us to reach out to them when we are struggling. So when we do get in those moments, we don't isolate, we don't keep to ourselves. We do have someone we can talk to who's been through something similar, who understands us. And when we're worried about being judged, that's vital. So we do a lot of stuff outside. We just did a 20-mile hike in Yosemite up to Clouds Rest. We did a fly tying event here in our office, and then we took guys out to an alpine lake in the Sierras and made them hike to go fish. And then the goal was to catch a fish on a tie a fly that you tied. We also have, last year we spent roughly $90,000 on paying for therapy. Now these are what we call culturally competent therapists. So if you're worried about going to your chain of command, if you're a police officer, firefighter, you've been to a situation, maybe a small child drowned or was in a vehicle accident and died, and that has really stuck with you, it's better if you talk with a professional about that. So instead of putting these barriers up, we remove any barriers to treatment. So you sign up, we don't know, you're vetted that you're a veteran first responder, and then you go to this therapist and they just directly bill us. There's no connection between us and that individual, because we don't want them to fear that their name is going to be put out and someone's going to think negatively of them, or there's going to be that stigma attached to them getting help. So last year we were actually nonprofit of the year for California. It's a huge, huge deal. And I think that's just speaks to the impact that we've had. So not only have we, paid $90,000 for our local first responders to go to therapy, but we've also paid for 5 working dogs to be in our local area with chaplains and with the Sacramento Fire Department. We're working with the Sacramento Police Department and El Dorado County Sheriffs to get dogs there as well. We have programs for the family members. So it's not just them, because this impacts their family as well. We want to make sure that their spouses have an outlet. We have workshops for firefighter spouses and police officer spouses, so they understand what their spouses are going through on a day-to-day basis. The day I left Iraq, we lost 2 people. Well, I had a few days to try to process that before I got home. Now, when I got home, I had to put on a fake smile, put on a facade, and act happy to be home, even though I just lost 2 more brothers the day I left. Well, these guys get the drive home. They get a 30-minute drive home and try to figure out where to put that so they can go home and engage with their kids and their spouses. It's difficult. If their spouses understand that more, then it will be easier for them to communicate, because at the end of the day, that's what our biggest focus is. How can we communicate the things that we're going through in a way that doesn't alienate or traumatize the person we're relaying this to? And even more so, but how do we get ourselves to be more empathetic? It was something that I struggled with when I came home from war. If you hadn't been through what I'd been through, you couldn't possibly understand. Well, that was naive of me. Everyone goes through loss and has grief. I just didn't know how to communicate in a way that was effective. I think I've gotten better at that. And the best way I can articulate that is this: we're all human. We go through human experiences. If we're going to allow ourselves to give grace to someone else who's going through a loss or traumatic experience, why don't we allow that same thing for ourselves? Why don't we allow others to give us that same love and empathy? It's hard to have emotions and still feel like a warfighter sometimes, but I tell you, I know that that is what keeps me healthy. And my wife has been the biggest catalyst for that. I'm not weak because I ask for help. I'm stronger.
But that's also, I would imagine that as tough as it was to see your brothers in action killed, and as tough as it was to leave Iraq that day, that two more of your brothers were killed, coming home and fighting that war, right? That internal war that's always with you. That has to be perhaps the biggest challenge you faced.
It is. It's one of the so we own 2 for-profit businesses as well. Kinetic Ink Tattoo Company and Kinetic Threads. We make custom shirts for, reunions, family thing, anything that you need, we can do that stuff. And a portion of every tattoo that gets done at Kinetic Ink goes to help fund Warfighter Overwatch. But we started that in the beginning. A local firefighter, Sacramento firefighter, Dave King, he was an airborne ranger as well in the Army. And Dave started Kinetic Ink so that the guys could come hang out. And it has grown into this huge community of people where they can be around people who have been through similar things. And at the end of the day, that's what we seek, right? We want to be around people who we don't have to feel judged by or have that fear that someone may judge us for, participating in war. And I didn't want to go to Iraq. I wanted to go to Hawaii or somewhere really nice. Greece sounds awesome, but that's not what was in store for me. And I made choices that, directly impacted my future as a young man. I wouldn't change that. I would do the same thing. And my friends who have lost, arms, legs, they make the same statement. I would do this over and over again. I would make the same choice, because when we have something worth fighting for, and our country is far from perfect, but it is worth fighting for, you find other people who are willing to fight for it as well. And that gives you hope. And hope is a very powerful thing. I don't want my kids fighting in a war, but I do want them to fight for, others. I want them to fight for things that are worth it, right? And the best way for me to show them is to show them how to fight. And that usually means we can use some effective communication. And I'm grateful that Warfighter Overwatch exists to help these guys. I'll be grateful when I can shut my doors and I don't need to exist anymore.
Well, Danny, we got to wrap this up, but thank you. The work that you've done so far is amazing, and you're going to continue to do great work. If somebody wants to help Warfighter Overwatch, or they want to get help from Warfighter Overwatch, what's their first step?
Warfighter-overwatch.org. You can go on there, see our programs, sign up. It's confidential if you need therapy. If you want to join us on one of the hikes or fishing trips, you can sign up for that stuff. If you want to volunteer, there's a sign up for a volunteer list. If you want to donate, there's a donate button. Anything that if any way you want to help support us, we have an avenue to make that happen, to help facilitate that. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that our local community has the ability to support these folks. So thank you guys again.
Thank you, Danny. Say hi to Fawn for us.
You got it. Appreciate you guys.
Okay. Take care.